Cash on the table, £500,000, and a duchess pledging access to Buckingham Palace are all present. There was more to that hazy 2010 undercover video than just tabloid fodder. In front of everyone, Sarah Ferguson was at her lowest point financially. From avoiding bankruptcy documents to having sleepovers at a country place. She went from selling her cherished Belgravia property to charity abandoning her following an email incident. What caused the former daughter-in-law of the Queen to abandon royal luxury? To being in debt by millions? Prepare yourselves because this is the most outrageous money ride you will ever see outside the palace gates. Sarah Ferguson was never a quiet person, was she? She partied with celebrities, married a prince, and maintained a grin despite scandals that would have destroyed most people's reputations. However, beneath that notoriously large laugh and the blazing red hair was a vicious balance sheet. Her wedding brought in millions of dollars, her 40s brought in millions more, and her current net worth is likely less than the cost of a modest London garage. We will examine Fergie's financial highs and lows over the next few minutes. We'll pose the question that royal watchers continue to murmur about everything from economies to failed companies, from palace privilege to weigh-ins. Is Fergie a victim of the situation? Trapped in a system that she was not really familiar with? Or did she create her own financial mess? Given the complexity of the story, the solution may involve a combination of both. When Sarah Margaret Ferguson, then 26 years old, said, "I will," at Westminster Abbey, she was not only accepting Prince Andrew, but also accepting a life that most of us can only imagine. A stipend for clothing, domestic help, and weekends at Windsor Castle. The ultimate fairy tale was this one. Although royal brides were not paid in the traditional sense, daily expenses were almost eliminated. Consider it. Travel, personal chefs, gowns, and even dog food. All of this was brought about by the Crown. According to friends from that time period, Fergie honestly thought the trip would go on forever and that this was just her new normal. However, as everyone knows, fairy tales don't always endure, particularly when the royal spotlight is on them. The duration of this specific golden carriage ride was only 6 years. That royal checkbook was slammed shut with a loud thump by the 1992 separation and 1998 divorce. This is when things start to become pretty fascinating, and some people think it's a little unfair. Sarah received a far smaller payout than Princess Diana, who reportedly took home £17 million plus ongoing expenses. She agreed to pay about £900,000, or $1.4 to $4 million at the time, which included a portion of Andrew's Navy pension and a fund for a house purchase. She lost the royal safety net, but she did retain the much sought-after title of Duchess of York. She suddenly had to pay for her own vacations, mortgages, and most importantly, her own pretty costly lifestyle demands. Eversmart reporters made jokes about her changing from Champagne Sarah to supermarket Carver. However, even though the joke was catchy, it totally ignored the actual plot. This was a woman who enjoyed lavish gifts, first-class travel for friends, paying for her relatives' private education, and tipping like she had won the jackpot. Due to the financial realities of her new life, Sarah started the US lifestyle and wellness company Heartmore LLC in an effort to maintain her independence and financial stability. She filled it with about every pound she possessed. However, the business saw almost little return, was beset by skyrocketing overheads, and by 2009 had reportedly left her with a $650,000 hole in her coffers. Friends encouraged her to file for bankruptcy after realizing the situation, but Sarah, always defiant, refused. She stated to Vanity Fair that filing for bankruptcy was the simple solution, which was a reflection of her ingrained resistance to acknowledging failure. Instead, in order to stay afloat and keep the wolves at bay, she discreetly sold her cherished family getaway, a Swiss ski chalet. Then came May 2010, a time that would worsen her financial difficulties and cause the castle to tremble. Sarah was captured on tape taking a briefcase full of $40,000 as a down payment. Access to her ex-husband, Prince Andrew, was purportedly promised in exchange for a sizable £500,000. The top pages of the news outlets included headlines such as Fergie's £500,000 embarrassment. The consequences were severe and swift. Speaking engagements were cancelled in a matter of days. The Duchess found herself persona non grata at a number of royal functions, and charity patrons withdrew. Even if the controversy didn't cause her current problems, it did completely freeze her earning potential just when she needed it most. She later acknowledged that it was a grave error of judgment and placed the blame on alcohol and despair. As expected, critics referred to it as avarice. Proponents contended that the tabloids had established a terrible honey trap. In any case, she made overnight money at her market rate for after-dinner remarks, which is an essential source of revenue. Her already shaky reputation suffered yet another serious setback. Even though it was constantly changing, television nevertheless enjoyed a good redemption story. Despite her previous blunders, Sarah Ferguson was a well-known figure with a backstory. After the sting, Weight Watchers, which had already hired her as a spokesperson in the late 1990s, reportedly paid her a much-needed $1 million over 2 years, renewing their agreement. Her children's books about Budgie the helicopter kept selling well, particularly in the US, where nostalgia for royalty is constantly in style. For 5 figures, she spoke at wellness conferences, headlined documentaries, and starred in Eastern European yogurt advertisements. Let's fast forward until 2022. Being a grandmother leads to a fresh, somewhat surprising business realization. Sarah is a co-founder of The Greater Good, a business that caters to environmentally conscious parents by offering plant-based, compostable nappies. A more socially conscious attitude to entrepreneurship is evident in this change. Financial blogs warily inquire as to whether the green market can forgive her background, while early reviews commend the product. She starts Vestipole Films and a podcast with her daughter at the same time, indicating a shift towards media production and a more reliable, varied source of income. Her current net worth is estimated by analysts to be around $200,000. Perhaps cozy for the typical retiree, yet tiny in the eyes of the royal family. Norms. Without mentioning Sarah's ex-husband, Prince Andrew, no examination of her finances would be complete. For better or worse, the couple's finances are tightly intertwined, and they still share Royal Lodge, the vast Windsor mansion that Andrew is unable to sell. However, the financial storms never completely subside. There was a recent uproar when a leaked 2011 email reappeared in the media. The phrasing caused instant backlash because it was biased and poorly assessed. She quickly stopped being a patron of several charities. A severe blow to someone whose private income has long been supported by her public roles. Once more, a single headline resulted in diminished earning potential and credibility. She concurrently sold her Belgravia townhouse for $4.2 million in secret. Although it was officially portrayed as a downsizing, insiders are certain that the transaction was intended to satisfy Royal Lodge's massive financial needs. Basic maintenance, rewiring, and roof repairs on a large property that is more of a liability than a benefit. To put it briefly, Sarah has had to sell valuable London real estate in order to maintain the Windsor estate. Her current predicament involves more than simply her previous indebtedness. It also involves the lingering effects of her bad choices and the high expenses of the lifestyle she is adamant about leading. As best we can piece things together, here is the current snapshot. A net worth of between $150,000 and $200,000. A reported yearly income currently falls between £150,000 and £300,000. Divide your time between books, endorsements, and media initiatives. There are no properties in her name alone, and she continues to make monthly payments to maintain her previous tax arrangements. Although it's a world away from the woman who famously joked that she had never seen a bill, she is undoubtedly not impoverished. The Duchess can now finally properly budget for one, as her daughter is now grown, prosperous, and completely self-sufficient. According to her friends, she still takes economy flights, uses coupons, and adores finding a good deal. Although the Queen's Bank has long since closed for business, the palace gates are nonetheless open for family gatherings in honor of her ongoing roles as a mother and grandmother. This woman has learnt to stand on her own 2 feet, or perhaps is learning to do so the hard way. What are your thoughts? Has Fergie finally figured out her mistake? Or is the upcoming major endeavor just a prelude to another catastrophe? Tell us in the space below. And if anyone still believes that royal life is all tiaras and taxpayer millions, kindly share this video with them. The Duchess's financial rollercoaster shows that even royal life comes with a price tag. What lesson do you take from Fergie's journey? Let us know in the comments, and stay tuned as we uncover more untold royal realities beyond the palace gates.